My name is Maithili Appalwar, and today I'm very excited to present my research on pioneers from 19th century India. I want to start off by telling you a story from 3,000 years ago. This story is about Purush, a cosmic being, who sacrificed himself in a ritual for the gods. And in this sacrifice, from his mouth came the Brahmins or the priests, from his arms came the Kshatriyas or the warriors, from his thighs came the Vaishyas or the merchants, and from his feet came the Shudras or the laborers. The Dalits, who did manual and polluting work that was too lowly for the other castes, were kept outside of the divine order. Now, this story probably isn't true, but what it did do was it provided a very, very convenient justification for the dominant castes. The castes are divinely ordained, they said. There's nothing you or I can do to question or critique them. Now hang tight, because I'm about to make a 2,800-year jump and pull us into South Asia in the 19th century, where two major forces were limiting human rights. The first was that the Hindu dominant castes had created a stronghold by limiting access to land, labor, and water. So this is the Chavdar tank in rural Maharashtra, where cattle were allowed to drink from the tank, but Dalit and Shudra communities were not. Essentially, what I'm saying is that the dominant castes were the very first version of the mean girls. And they were very clearly saying, you cannot sit with us. The second limiting factor was the British colonialists. The British, in order to maintain their stronghold in the country, needed to appease the Indian elite. And who was the Indian elite? It was Hindu, it was dominant caste, and it was most likely male. And so the British started ossifying these caste and gender practices that already existed in the society. In this kind of context, in 1848, Jyotirao and Savitribai Phule started the Satyashodhak Samaj, or the Truth Seekers Society, whose mission was to combat dominant class male elitism by using collective action amongst women, Shudra, and Dalits. And they did this in three main ways. One, they wrote social theory that would criticize caste and gender barriers. Two, they started schools for marginalized communities. And three, they advocated on behalf of these communities to the British government. But when the history of the Samaj is written, women only feature in the second pillar, or the educational work. Women's achievements are tokenized through stamps like this and Google Doodles. But what I'm trying to say is that the important contributions that women made to the social theorizing work is mentioned about as often as Penn is free from construction. So never. And this is not just true of popular culture, this is also true in academia. If you look at this paper from 2016 called Forging a New Dalit Womanhood, in the abstract itself, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar and Jyotirao Phule, two male activists, are named twice, but not a single Dalit woman is named individually. The writer says Dalit women appropriated their leaders' discourse, making it sound as though the men were the thinkers and the women mere implementers. This is where I disagree. Using historical evidence, which is three women's writings from this period, I argue that women members of the Samaj were fully engaged intellectual actors. The first women pioneer that I bring today is Tarabai Shinde, who was an upper caste woman born to rich agriculturists in present-day Maharashtra. In her seminal work called Stri Purush Tulna, or the comparison between men and women, she makes two important theoretical contributions. One, she says that the dominant castes, in order to maintain the purity of their caste lines, want to prevent intermarriage between women from their castes and men from lower castes. And the way they do this is by restricting the movement of their women. And when I say movement, I literally mean movement. She's saying that I was kept locked up and confined, is literally in captivity as she writes this. The second theorization that she makes is she says that even within the dominant castes, there is this desire to appear Brahmin or to appear of uppermost status. And what that ends up meaning is that the other dominant castes have adopted the uber-conservative practices that were earlier only present in Brahmin communities. So she says that you can see an even stricter rules than the Brahmins in these families, and this is leading to a weakening in the position of women. The second pioneer that I bring up today is Savitribai Phule, who is a poet, and she used poetry to criticize caste and gender oppression. In her poem, Meaning of the Word Shudra, she says, the word Shudra in truth connoted a native. So remember the 3,000-year-old story I told you? She's basically turning it on its head. She's saying the castes were not divinely ordained. Rather, we, the Shudras, were the native people of this land, and we have two colonizers, the Brahmins, or the dominant castes, and the British. And this theory of Shudra indigeneity is later espoused by her husband Jyotirao Phule in a lot of his writings, and also referenced by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, one of the foremost scholars of 20th century Dalit and South Asian scholarship. It does bear mention, it's important to mention though, that Savitribai continues to work within the boundaries of Hindu scriptures. Like here where she says that the doors of Goddess Saraswati's court, Goddess Saraswati being the Hindu goddess of education, her doors are now open, which means that the dominant caste monopoly over education needs to end, but she's still referencing the scriptures. Now, before I go to the next one, I want you to think about what you were like at the age of 11 years old. Personally, I couldn't even tie my shoelaces properly. So when J.K. Rowling gave us this for an 11-year-old, I was like, which 11-year-old is this smart? But the next pioneer I present is exactly like that. Muktabai Salve was just 11 years old when she published this essay called The Grief of Dalits in a British periodical called the Dyanodaya, in which she made three very important contributions. First, she said that some Mahars are now trying to stay away even from the shadows of us Mangs. Mahars and Mangs are sub-communities within the larger Dalit community. So here what she's saying is that the Dalit community is unable to operate as a monolith to fight caste oppression. Instead, there is a sense of hierarchy even within us. This was later termed graded inequality and featured heavily in Ambedkar's writings. Second, she says when our women go into labor, even in that stage of pregnancy, we don't have a roof over our heads. So even in a practice that's as common as pregnancy for a lot of women, she's bringing out the difference between what it looks like for a dominant caste woman and what it looks like for a Dalit woman. And this reeks of intersectional feminism, a theory that came to the West as late as the 1920s and 30s. So in 1855, Muktabai is well ahead of her time. Finally, she says that if we want to annihilate caste, we have to get away from the scriptures. And so she moves away from Savitribai's theoretical idea of working within the constraint of Hindu scriptures. In conclusion, if you take three things away from my talk today, one, the archive is incomplete. We didn't know anything about these women a few decades ago, and even now we know very little. So continue to question the narratives that are put in front of you. Second, women were much more than passive followers. They were writing reform ideology in colonial South Asia. And third, all of these women, based on their individual experiences, had an outlook that was different from each other. So let's avoid calling anything the women's perspective, because it truly does not exist. Thank you.